Welcome to the second NXgen private event of 2017, and oh boy do we have an awesome lineup of cars that attended this event. To give you a taste of what's to come from this video, let me introduce you to Uncle Basil's beautiful Nismo R35 GT-R. This car is a fully NXgen built Alpha 12X, but we'll tell you more about this beast in a little bit. For now, take a look at the type of coverage we're about to bring you from this event. That's right, 9.46 seconds, and he fought for traction. Now, before you think this video is going to be full of GTRs, let me assure you, we have a diverse lineup of weaponry here today. However, before we start racing, let's open the day with prayer.
Let's make it a fun day. Just be safe, and that's it. Over to Tariq.
Gavin, small prayer, please. In the name of the Almighty, most beneficial, most merciful, all praise is due to you, Lord of the world, Master of the universe, Supreme Creator of life and the Maker of death. Today we are gathered at Talton for an NXgen private event. We ask for your guidance, protection and prevention of any harm falling upon any of us. Bless us with great weather, help us with traction, guide us in achieving our personal goals. Dear Lord, we have a few special requests. Please help Gavin blossom from under the shadows cast by Chris. Please assist Ian to at least make it out of the pits and to the start line. And most of all, dear Lord, we beg, we pray and we plead to help Tariq understand the two-wheel, four-wheel drive controller so we don't have to spend time at the start line. Amen. Come guys, let's race! Okay guys,
Seeing as Tariq has already started with him, we might as well do so too. This R35 GT-R is probably the most famous GT-R in South Africa. For a long time it is the quickest street legal car over the quarter mile, until it was dethroned at the last NXgen private event by Uncle Ben's GT-R. Well, as Tariq pointed out, it suffered with technical issues the last time it came to the track. Now, it's time for a quick tire change and a warm-up pass to get everything up to temperature. A solenoid in the gearbox got stuck. Stelios told Uncle Basil, and Uncle Basil promptly sent him back to the pits. The most powerful street car in the country is now crippled at the track day hosted by the shop that built it. Sorry, Stelios. We can only imagine how disappointed you must have been. At least it shouldn't be too costly to get this titan of South African drag racing back on her feet to dominate the strip again. Now, we move on from the fastest street car in the country to the quickest Subaru in the country. And surprisingly, it's a hatch. We would love to tell you exactly what powers this GR WRX STI. However, the owner doesn't want anyone knowing exactly what he's running. All we know is this car has a big turbo and makes over 500 kilowatts in the hubs. This impressive hatch STI is built and tuned by NXgen. Unfortunately, the quickest Subaru in the country is probably the most powerful Subaru in the country. And with those full drag radial Husea slicks on all four wheels, this car just snapped the side shaft clean off on its first run out. From the fastest Subaru in the country, we move on to the fastest front-wheel drive car in the country. Quinton's K24 powered EK Civic. This car makes around 1,100 horsepower at 2 bar worth of boost pressure. The car runs a Drag Cartel CNC head and billet cams. Quinton and Hercules built the car, and MJR Technologies tuned the Motec management. Unfortunately, the car failed hard on this run. Quinton and his team think the small end on the rod failed, but it's hard to say for sure. All we know is this monster build just pushed a monster rod through the block. Nevertheless, this car will be back on its feet in a couple of weeks, and Quinton will be back at it again in search of the K-Series world record. Tariq, who's pretty much the man behind these events, has just rocked up to the line in a Gavin Wilkins Supercharged Lumina SS Bucky, or Ute for our international viewers. This car has two massive slicks that need to be warmed up. However, GT-R life has spoiled Tariq so much that he seems to be struggling with the burnout. After finally getting some heat in those tires, Tariq lines up the supercharged SS Bucky next to the Joburg Autotech Golf 7R, but we'll get to that car next. Tariq is struggling with his brake boosting technique on the supercharged LS1 and accidentally jump starts, sending the Joburg Autotech Golf on a solo run. Unfortunately for Tariq, he now has to line up next to one of the most powerful GT-Rs here today, and he's probably lost most of the heat that he's put into those tires. We'll see more of the Nilo Performance GT-R later. For now, that wasn't a bad 14-second pass, considering the tires had very little warmth in them. Now, we can get back to the Joburg Autotech Golf 7R. This car has a forged motor, boosted by a TTE 470 turbocharger. On Tahir's fastest run of the day, he closed the 60-foot trap in 1.92 seconds, making him the 14th fastest car on the 60-foot of the day. He went on to pass the 1/8 of a mile trap in 7.8 seconds, putting him in a tie for 15th place on that trap for the day. The 7R exited the 1/8 of a mile at 146 kilometers an hour, putting him in 17th place in that trap's exit speed. The Joburg Autotech Golf 7R then exited the quarter mile at 184.49 kilometers an hour, putting him in 16th place for that trap's highest exit speed. He covered the quarter mile in 12.1 seconds, putting him in 17th place for the day. This R35 belongs to Gerard, and those beautiful wheels are wrapped in a set of semis, so he's here for business. This car's an Alpha 6 built by NXgen, so that means they changed the induction pipes and upgraded the actuators in the stock turbos that open into a catless HKS exhaust. They then upgrade the fuel pump and injectors, which get a flex fuel controller run by ECU Tech. A NXgen Alpha 6 conversion like this is capable of over 520 kilowatts in the hubs. On Gerard's fastest run of the day, he closed the 60-foot trap in 2.61 seconds, making him the 17th fastest car on the 60-foot of the day. He went on to pass the 1/8 of a mile in 8.12 seconds, putting him in 17th place on that trap for the day. The R35 exited the 1/8 of a mile at 172 kilometers an hour, putting him in 9th place on that trap's exit speed. The Alpha 6 R35 then exited the quarter mile at 223.46 kilometers an hour, putting him in 9th place for that trap's highest exit speed. He covered the quarter mile in 11.68 seconds, putting him in 16th place for the day. This is Satish's Opel Kadett powered by a C20 LET motor. This is the same engine from the TS and the Calibra. However, the internals have been forged and a Holset HX50 turbo provides 1.4 bar worth of boost pressure. Everything is controlled by a Haltech management system, which Satish was busy tuning at the track. The car's running ethanol supplied by 24/7. However, there was a fuel pressure issue as a result of tank design that made this car's day at the track more difficult than it should have been. On Satish's fastest run of the day, he closed the 60-foot trap in 1.98 seconds, making him the 15th fastest car to cover the 60-foot on the day. He went on to pass the eighth of a mile in 7.7 seconds, putting him in 14th place on that trap. The Opel exited the eighth of a mile at 160 kilometers an hour, putting him in 15th place on that trap's exit speed. The 20 LET Kadett then exited the quarter mile at 215.51 kilometers an hour, putting him in 11th place for that trap's highest exit speed. He covered the quarter mile in 11.53 seconds, putting him in 15th place for the day. This is Suleiman's ICE Motorsport built 2JZ powered E30. It has the ICE 800 engine package done to it. That means this big power build is controlled by a Haltech Elite. There's an M3 gearbox in between the motor and stock diff. Priyan from ICE Motorsport was tuning the car at the track on the day to get the setup right. Suleiman's fastest run of the day, he closed the 60-foot trap in 2.05 seconds, making him the 16th fastest car on the 60-foot of the day. He went on to pass the eighth of a mile trap in 7.8 seconds, putting him in 15th place at the eighth of a mile. The BMW exited the eighth of a mile at 167 kilometers an hour, putting him in 11th place on that trap's exit speeds. The 2J E30 then exited the quarter mile at 225.74 kilometers an hour, putting him in 8th place for that trap's highest exit speed. He covered the quarter mile in 11.47 seconds, putting him in 14th place for the day. This R35 GT-R belongs to George, and it's another NXgen built Alpha 6, so that means they changed the induction pipes and upgraded the actuators in the stock turbos that open into a catless HKS exhaust. They then upgraded the fuel pump and installed 1000cc injectors which get a flex fuel controller run by ECU Tech. Just like Gerard's car, this car is capable of over 520 kilowatts in the hubs. George was running a 75% ethanol fuel mix. On George's fastest run of the day, he covered the 60-foot in 1.78 seconds, making him the 12th fastest car on the 60-foot of the day. He went on to pass the 1/8 of a mile in 7.2 seconds, putting him in 13th place on that trap for the day. The GT-R exited the 1/8 of a mile at 163 kilometers an hour, putting him in 14th place on that trap's exit speed. The VR38 R35 then exited the quarter mile at 205.27 kilometers an hour, putting him in 14th place for that trap's highest exit speed. He covered the quarter mile in 11.07 seconds, putting him in 13th place for the day. This is Bradley's 1979 Fox Body Mustang, powered by a stock block 302 that spins a C6 transmission that then spins an M75 diff. The car has a single plate nitrous system that sprays 150 horsepower shot while being fueled by AF gas. Mark Slutin is the man that tuned the car, and Bradley is very grateful. Bradley would also like to thank Simon Slutin and his dad Jerome for all their help with the build. On Bradley's fastest run of the day, he closed the 60-foot trap in 1.47 seconds, making him the 5th fastest car on the 60-foot of the day. He went on to pass the 1/8 of a mile in 6.8 seconds, putting him in 10th place on that trap for the day. The Mustang exited the 1/8 of a mile at 158 kilometers an hour, putting him in 16th place on that trap's exit speed. The 302 then exited the quarter mile at 195.31 kilometers an hour, putting him in 15th place for that trap's highest exit speed. He covered the quarter mile in 10.87 seconds, putting him in 12th place for the day. This is Anthony's 800 horsepower Evo 8 built by NXgen. The motor is fully forged to handle the boost from the massive precision turbo. Upgraded fuel pumps and injectors fuel this car to make around 480 kilowatts on the hubs. A sequential gearbox with pedals on the steering wheel has also been fitted to help this car get down the quarter mile faster. On Anthony's fastest run of the day, he closed the 60-foot trap in 1.85 seconds, making him the 13th fastest car on the 60-foot. He went on to pass the 1/8 of a mile in 7.13 seconds, putting him in 13th place on that trap. The Evo exited the 1/8 of a mile at 165 kilometers an hour, putting him in 12th place on that trap's exit speed. The Ford G63 then exited the quarter mile at 215.36 kilometers an hour, putting him in 15th place for that trap's highest exit speed. He covered the quarter mile in 10.85 seconds, putting him in 11th place for the day. This is a Simbee BB Motorsport built R35 GT-R that has forged rods, pistons, and the HKS 800 kit. That means this car should be good for around 800 horsepower. Nassim's fastest run of the day, he covered the 60-foot in 1.75 seconds, making him the 11th fastest car in the 60-foot for the day. He went on to pass the 1/8 of a mile trap in 7.2 seconds, also putting him in 11th place on that trap for the day. The GT-R then exited the 1/8 of a mile at 169 kilometers an hour, putting him in 10th place on that trap's highest exit speed. The VR38 then exited the quarter mile at 217.15 kilometers an hour, also putting him in 10th place for that trap's highest exit speed. He covered the quarter mile in 10.7 seconds, putting him in 10th place overall for the day. This is Tariq's 2017 R35 GT-R, and it's another Alpha 6 built by NXgen. That means they changed the induction pipes and upgraded the actuators and the stock turbos that open into catless HKS exhausts. They then upgraded the fuel pump and installed 1000cc injectors which get a flex fuel controller run by ECU Tech. Tariq runs 24/7 race fuels E100 at 1.3 bar worth of boost pressure, along with those massive slicks. No wonder he has the quickest Alpha 6 here today. On Tariq's fastest run of the day, he closed the 60-foot trap in 1.52 seconds, making him the 6th fastest car in the 60-foot of the day. He went on to pass the 1/8 of a mile trap in 6.65 seconds, putting him in 9th place for that trap. The GT-R exited the 1/8 of a mile at 165 kilometers an hour, putting him in a tie with the Evo for 12th place in that trap's exit speed. The VR38 then exited the quarter mile at 210.06 kilometers an hour, putting him in 13th place for that trap's highest exit speed. He covered the quarter mile in 10.4 seconds, putting him in 9th place for the day. This is Shamil's Evo 9, and it's like no other Evo I've ever seen. It has a 2.3-liter stroker motor with a dry sump lubrication system and a massive turbo. An upgraded intake manifold, fuel pumps, and injectors spin a sequential gearbox with upgraded diffs to make 800 kilowatts on the wheel hubs. On Shamil's quickest run of the day, he covered the 60-foot in a blistering 1.24 seconds, making him the 4th fastest car in the 60-foot of the day. He went on to pass the 1/8 of a mile in 6.3 seconds, putting him in 8th place in that trap. The Evo exited the 1/8 of a mile at 189 kilometers an hour, putting him in 7th place in that trap's exit speed. The 4G63 then broke and exited the quarter mile at 179.96 kilometers an hour, putting him in 17th place for that trap's highest exit speed. Even though the car broke, he covered the quarter mile in 10.13 seconds. Yeah, 10.13 seconds, putting him in 8th place for the day. And the car broke just before he finished the run. Wow. This is Kogi's Nilo Performance built 2010 R35 GT-R. This car has forged manly pistons and rods as well as a manly crank and Calford cams with Ferro valves and springs. A carb intake is connected to a HKS 1000 turbo kit which boosts an Alpha Omega intercooler connected to a larger throttle body to let more air into the HKS inlet manifold. 2000cc injectors and Alpha Omega fuel pumps fuel this beast through a flex fuel controller and ECU tech, tuned by Uncle Mo from Motronics, a DOTS and Extreme gearbox and additional gearbox cooler along with upgraded diffs and shafts all around are needed to try and use all this power. BC coilovers also aid the quarter-mile times. On Kogi's fastest run of the day, he closed the 60-foot trap in 1.53 seconds, making him the 7th fastest car in the 60-foot. He went on to pass the 1/8 of a mile in 6.3 seconds, also putting him in 7th place on that trap. The GT-R exited the 1/8 of a mile at 182 kilometers an hour, putting him in 8th place on that trap's exit speed. The R35 then exited the quarter mile at 232.51 kilometers an hour, putting him in 7th place for that trap's highest exit speed. He covered the quarter mile in 9.75 seconds, putting him in 7th place for the day. This 1999 Hayabusa belongs to Chris, and it's a fully converted drag bike. It's got a 500 horsepower Garrett turbo bolted onto a motor with Viceco pistons and Carrillo rods on a stroker crank with turbo cams and valves as well as ARP heads and casing studs and nuts. cc injectors, a Turbonetics wastegate and an extended swing arm, along with a lot more work to the frame went into converting this road bike from the 90s into a full drag bike. Chris's quickest run of the day, he covered the 60-foot in 1.74 seconds, making him the 10th fastest person on the 60-foot. He went on to pass the 1/8 of a mile in 6.2 seconds, putting him in 6th place. The bike exited the 1/8 of a mile at 196 kilometers an hour, also putting him into 6th place on that trap's highest exit speed of the day. The Hayabusa then exited the quarter mile at 264.62 kilometers an hour, putting him in 5th place for that trap's highest exit speed. He covered the quarter mile in 9.28 seconds, putting him in 6th place for the day. This is Uncle Basil's Nismo R35 Alpha 12X. This means that this car has a 4.1-litre stroker motor with upgraded carbon intakes and extra fuel rails, Alpha 12X turbo kit, as well as clutch and diff upgrades to handle the power. A full HKS race exhaust makes this car sound like something out of a video game. On Uncle Basil's fastest run of the day, he did the 60-foot in 1.56 seconds, making him the 8th fastest car on the 60-foot of the day. He went on to pass the 1/8 of a mile in 6.08 seconds, putting him in 5th place on that track. The Nismo exited the 1/8 of a mile at 197 kilometers an hour, also putting him into 5th place on that track's highest exit speed. The fastest GT-R of the day exited the quarter mile at 249.05 kilometers an hour, putting him in 6th place for that chap's highest exit speed. Uncle Basil covered the quarter mile in 9.26 seconds, putting him in 5th place for the day. This is Yanni's 2008 Hayabusa drag bike, and this thing runs a twin-scroll Garrett GT40 capable of 650 horsepower. This bike also has Viceco pistons and Carilla rods on a bullet stroker crank with turbo cams and valves, as well as ARP heads and casing studs and nuts. So it's very similar to the build on Chris's bike. However, it runs a bigger turbo. On Yanni's fastest run of the day, he covered the 60-foot in 1.59 seconds, making him the 9th fastest 60-foot. He went on to pass the 1/8 of a mile trap in 5.7 seconds, putting him in 4th place on that trap for the day. The bike exited the 1/8 of a mile at 220 kilometers an hour, also putting him in 4th place on that trap's exit speed. The fully built Hayabusa drag bike then exited the quarter mile at 272.23 kilometers an hour, putting him in 4th place again for that trap's highest exit speed. He covered the quarter mile in 8.61 seconds, putting him in, wait for it, 4th place for the day. This is Ian Repsol's Pro Import Type full tube chassis car based on a Lexus IS250. It's powered by a Toyota 2JZ motor boosted by a precision 91mm turbo. The engine is methanol fueled through 12 2400cc injectors and makes between 1000 to 1200 horsepower depending on the boost. All this power is made by a Heltec management, and the boost is controlled by an AMS 2000. The car also has a nitrous system fitted to it. However, Ian's only using the gas on the line to build boost for now. Ian says this build would have never been possible without his dad Fred and his buddy Anthony, but most importantly, his wife Toinette. get this, she's not just running around the racetrack to make sure he's perfectly lined up on the start line. She also let him build this monster in her backyard. On Ian's quickest run of the day, he did the 60-foot in 1.13 seconds, making him the second fastest car in the 60-foot of the day. He went on to pass the eighth of a mile in 5.01 seconds, putting him in second place on that trap as well. Ian exited the eighth of a mile at 222 kilometers an hour, putting him in third place on that trap's exit speed. The 2J drag car then exited the quarter mile at 273.73 kilometers an hour, putting him in another third place for that trap's highest exit speed. The fastest thing to ever resemble a Lexus IS250 in Africa covers the quarter mile in 7.88 seconds, putting him in third place for the day. This is Isabel's rail drag car that Nico is testing, as he just built a motor for it and he was tuning and setting it up. The car has a supercharged 364 cubic inch small block Chevy V8 with methanol fuel injection, dart block, Crower billet crank, forged pistons and rods, world product heads, manually valves, and bullet roller cams. This crazy motor then turns a transmission speciality's power glide gearbox with a high stall torque converter and trans brake. That transmission then spins a 9-inch Ford diff with a 4.56 ratio pro gear set. This car makes around 1,300 horsepower and probably has one of the best power to weight ratios here. On Nico's quickest run out, he did the 60-foot in 1.17 seconds, making him the third fastest car in the 60-foot. He went on to pass the eighth of a mile trap in 5.03 seconds, putting him in third place on that trap for the day. The drag car exited the eighth of a mile at 227 kilometers an hour, putting him in second place on that trap's exit speed. The rail dragster then exited the quarter mile at 282.54 kilometers an hour, putting Niku in first place for that trap's highest exit speed. He covered the quarter mile in 7.8 seconds, putting him in second place overall for the day. This is the 10-liter twin Pro Mod 88 turbocharged big block Ford piloted by Gavin, boosting around 1.5 bar. This car fuels 16 5,000cc injectors with methanol controlled by a Haltech ECU turning a 2-speed power glide gearbox, which then powers a massive 9-inch diff. A double rail tube chassis and a 4-link rear suspension try and convert this power into forward motion. If it sounds exactly the same as last time, that's because it pretty much is. However, Gavin and his team have tried numerous suspension setups and brought along his tuner, Steve Clark, in an effort to go faster. On Gavin's quickest run of the day, he did the 60-foot in 1.03 seconds, making him the fastest car on the 60-foot of the day. He went on to pass the eighth of a mile in 4.93 seconds, putting him in first place on that trap as well. The drag car then exited the eighth of a mile at 250 kilometers an hour dead, also putting him in first place on that trap's highest exit speed of the day. The twin-turbo rail dragster then exited the quarter mile at 282.5 kilometers an hour, putting him in second place for that trap's highest exit speed. Gavin Wilkins covered the quarter mile in an astonishing 7.5 seconds, making him the fastest car of the day. Now it's time for some heads-up racing before we conclude this rather awesome event. Here we have Tariq's 600 horsepower GT-R, which is going to race Shamil's 1000 horsepower Evo 9. Unfortunately, Shamil completely missed the launch, and Tariq went on to make an 11-second pass. Now we have Shamil's 1000 horsepower Evo 9 lining up alongside the TTE-powered Golf 7R. The Autotech Golf got out the blocks first, but that Evo had more than enough power to catch and pass it. Now we're going to see Bradley's Fox Body Mustang go up against the Autotech Golf 7R. This is pretty much a Nokia 5110 with nitrous versus an iPhone with a big turbo. What do you know about that? The 5110 just destroyed the iPhone. This is George's Alpha 6 that's going to race Tariq's Alpha 6. Tariq narrowly takes the victory. That's all the action we have for you from this NXgen private event. The organizers would like to sincerely thank Tarleton International Raceway for their hospitality and 24/7 Race Fuels for all their support. We'd also like to thank NXgen for hosting an event of such high caliber and giving us the opportunity to produce this video. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to share. Then like and follow our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more. You can now find us and all the still images from this event on Instagram. All the links in the description.